Now, before we move on to the next question, I do want to mention to the public, and thank you, Marie, for reminding me. If you could please, if you have questions, you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A feature to ask questions. You can type in questions, and when and if at the end we have time, we can ask a question, okay? Please don't use the chat feature to ask questions. Use the Q&A feature to ask questions. And yeah, with that, we'll go on to our second question. And also, somebody reminded me, remember to say your name. I thought I did. If I did it, my apologies. My name is Cecilia Escamilla Greenwald, and I'm a neighbor in Davis, California, and I'm always very happy to collaborate and work with Woodlanders. It really has been a really fun opportunity to work with the group that put this together, and so I really commend them for doing this. Thank you. So remember to use that feature, the Q&A feature, if you have questions. We're now going to go on to our second question, and that second question, the order is going to be Kandice, Richardson, Fowler, Jake Whitaker, and then Trista Kennedy, okay? So the second question, it has to do with facilities. There are always expensive capital projects competing for limited dollars. Examples include a new heating and air conditioning system for Woodland High School, completing Spring Lake Elementary, building a new junior high to replace one of the older and crumbling junior highs, another elementary school to accommodate the growing population of the city, repairing many of our older schools, and much more. Kandice, which of these or others are priorities for you, and how will you find the money to fund these projects sooner rather than 10 or 20 years from now? Thank you.
That is a hard one to answer in 2 minutes, but I'll take a shot at it. One of the challenging things about hopefully joining the Woodland Joint Unified School Board as a trustee is that there has not been a strategic plan for more than 5 years. And a lot of these issues that are arising is because we haven't planned. I am a Beamer parent, as I mentioned earlier, and we had a horrible HVAC issue that happened. We had some other environmental issues that the board had to hurry up and triage. Now, I understand that we've got a lot of buildings and infrastructure work that we need to get done. So if I may make a plug for it, hopefully Measure Y does pass, because if we don't invest in our schools, I can't say this enough, as long as the state is not going to fully fund education, we need to harness and take this locally. And we need to make sure we're doing whatever we can to have an educated citizenry. Make sure that our kids are getting what they need. Now, I don't know the specifics of all of the capital projects that you mentioned. I did do some research upon getting the question and looked into it, but there's nuances that I cannot speak to. What I would like to know is, what is an immediate project that we have? What are the immediate needs that we need to respond to? I know that other school districts have equity plans in their budget for infrastructure issues. That meaning, when they're budgeting for what needs to be repaired at schools, they're taking in, how is this community being served? Are we serving them adequately? Do they need more resources to get to where they need, or do they need less? And that's how they take into consideration what projects are done at which schools and in what timely fashion. So while I could not answer your question to the letter, I hope I gave you some sort of a frame of how I would process that decision. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kandice. Okay, the question next is going to go to Jake Whitaker. And Jake, I will read that question for you. There are always expensive capital projects competing for limited dollars. Examples include a new heating and air conditioning system for Woodland High School, completing Spring Lake Elementary, building a new junior high to replace one of the older and crumbling junior highs, another elementary school to accommodate the growing population of the city, repairing many of our older schools, and much more. Which of these or others are priorities for you, and how you will find the money to fund these projects sooner rather than 10 or 20 years from now? Thank you, Jake.
Yeah. So I have been a co-chair of the Measure Y campaign, and I've been doing everything I possibly can to try to get that measure approved because it is vitally important to our ability to address these issues. The honest answer is we can't do all of these things without a school bond, precisely because of what Kandice said. She's exactly right. The state is not giving us enough funding. And 79% of our budget goes to salaries and benefits right now. And we still have employees that we can't pay a living wage. And I think it's shameful, but it's something that, you know, we at the local level can only do so much to address without intervention from the state. You know, and we face a very uncertain fiscal future with COVID-19 as well. I mean, just this past May, Governor Newsom proposed draconian cuts to education that would have resulted in having to cut $8 million from the Woodland Joint Unified School District budget. And that would have been a catastrophe if the state legislature hadn't intervened. Now, the thing about construction of new school facilities out in the Spring Lake area is that they do have a dedicated revenue stream that other areas of town don't through the collection of developers' fees. But we also have taxpayers in the Spring Lake area who are paying Melrose money to the city, but none of that goes to the school district. And in fact, when the city went about all of this development, they didn't even set aside land for a new elementary school or a new junior high school. And I think that as far as a junior high school goes, I think that's the next major big infrastructure project, not to replace one of the existing ones, but to add more capacity with a third middle school. And so that's, you know, just a summary of some of the challenges we're facing. We have very minimal budget flexibility to incorporate these needs in a year-to-year basis. And that's why passing Measure Y, I mean, it's the first step, but it's so critically important to the future of our district.
Thank you, Jake. Okay, next we're going to go to Trista Kennedy. And Trista, I will read the question to you. There are always expensive capital projects competing for limited dollars. Examples include a new heating and air conditioning system for Woodland High School, completing Spring Lake Elementary, building a new junior high to replace one of the older and crumbling junior highs, another elementary school to accommodate the growing population of the city, repairing many of our older schools, and much more. Which of these, Trista, or others, are priorities for you, and how you will find the money to fund these projects sooner rather than 10 or 20 years from now? Thank you.
Thank you for this thoughtful question. I appreciate it. It's no secret that our 18 schools are in dire need of repairs, and our city is only continuing to expand. That does require funding, and the current budget does not allocate the funding for. I mean, as Trustee Whitaker stated, 79% of our school district funding goes towards personnel salaries and benefits. So there's not much left for facility and structure needs. This is the reason why I am also supporting as a resident Measure Y. The passing of the Measure Y on the ballot initiative would generate close to $44 million in additional revenue to support facility projects for all of our schools at a 0% marginal tax increase for Woodland taxpayers. In regards to priorities, if Measure Y passes, an independent bond oversight committee would be convened to audit the bond expenditures to ensure the funds are being managed appropriately and responsibly. The facilities master plan that is currently being updated by staff would likely dictate the priorities of the projects to be completed. We do have several severe needs for our schools to be able to update them and make them safe for our kids. If Measure Y doesn't pass, then I don't see the needed facility repairs happening at any rate of speed, since major funding is needed there. It's possible we could look into grants or other funding sources, but based on the 2011 facility master plan, there's still over $26 million in facility repairs at 2011 pricing that still needs to be completed. At the end of the day, we need our schools to be safe and welcoming learning environments for all our students to do their best. The only way we can make this happen is by working together and making facility improvements in our school district a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Trista.